Yeah, what Dave's talking about is there was a call, it's a national call for a constitutional convention, and based on Article 5 in our Constitution. And what their claim of the organization is, and it's an admirable claim, is that we need to have a balanced budget for the federal government, just as we have for the state of Ohio. That's my understanding of what they'd like to achieve. And when they came into our committee, the state government committee, they presented this idea, and this is interesting. It's something to give you some insight into how these things happen in Columbus, probably similar to how they happen in Washington. But in Washington, you have full-time legislators. In Ohio, in other states, you have part-time legislators like me. So, and we have, for instance, in my office, I have one aide. So it's difficult. We don't have an army of supporters, people out there doing research on all these different issues. And we have to deal with maybe, in a given month, we might have to deal with 50 major pieces of legislation. So it's just myself and Rachel. So we have to review all these things. At any rate, these people came in, and they had a whole team of folks there from all over the country, and they gave presentations on why this CONCOM, as they called it, was so critically important to our nation's future. And so I started asking some questions. I asked a gentleman from Arizona who was the major proponent and supposed expert on it. I said, well, if we do have a CONCOM, and each state would send 2 representatives to the site of the convention, and then they'd all get together and they supposedly discuss just one issue, this balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. And it'd be limited, the discussion would be limited to that one issue. Nothing else could be discussed. And if anything else was discussed, we could recall our representatives. If indeed the CONCOM voted on something that we didn't like, it would come back to the state for ratification. It sounded foolproof the way he presented it. We'd have total control over these people. We'd have the strings on them no matter where they went or what they did. Otherwise, the CONCOM could knock it out of control. We wouldn't have a runaway convention where anything could happen. Because that's the real fear in a constitutional convention. I'm sure you're all aware of that. You know, the fear is it just goes crazy. These people start, offering all kinds of amendments. Our Constitution becomes void and is replaced with some weird kind of socialistic, communistic, libertarian, who knows what. Something totally different than we have right now. Overnight, this could be a different country. That's the fear. He assured us that could not happen. So we were all ready to vote on this thing. I kept asking questions. I was concerned about it. Dave kept calling me. Dave's a real champion of our Constitution, I have to tell you. And these are a gentleman like David over here, Dave Jennis. He changed my life as a legislator, and we need more Dave Jennises in this world right now. Dave, stand up for a second. Just stand up, please. I'm serious. He is a real patriot. Thanks, Dave.
Very kind of you. I really don't deserve those accolades. You're the one who deserves the accolades for doing what is right.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't for you driving me and others like you, I wouldn't have much to say or know what to do. And I was just going to say that for those of you out there who feel like you're powerless, that you're just someone sitting on the sidelines and you press your button every 2 to 4 years, please don't feel that way for a minute. Because people like me, I go into my business down here in Mentor. I spend 10 hours a day there. I've got 5 daughters. Then I go to Columbus, and I'm a legislator down there. I need help. I need to hear from people. Very important. So if you have a body of knowledge on a given issue and you hear about something happening in Columbus, please call me. I'd love to hear from you. But at any rate, there we are in committee, and Melanie Elsey from the Ohio Roundtable gets up. She testifies. I know the Roundtable. I know Melanie. And her testimony is totally opposite of what this guy just swore to. Totally opposite. You know, her testimony was that once we send these representatives to Washington, we have no control over them. Article 5 says clearly that we can't limit, there's no limitations on what can be discussed to the CONCOM. That once the CONCOM makes their final decision, they determine who ratifies it. It's strictly in their hands, the CONCOM's hands. If they want it ratified by a majority in each state, they can do that. If they want it ratified by, you know, the socialistic progressives in each downtown area of an urban center, that's who ratifies the Constitution. It's strictly in their hands. So it was clear these people from this nationally acclaimed organization with millions of dollars behind them, supposedly supporting this conservative initiative that was brought to us by other Republicans from all over the country, supposedly, were literally lying through their teeth about what they were really promoting. And they just, and you could see the disgust in their faces and the anger as they got up and just walked out of committee, refusing even to testify any longer because they knew they'd been exposed. So it is kind of interesting as a legislator that people can come before a committee, you know, a bona fide committee in the state of Ohio, and literally lie through their teeth. And sometimes it works. And someone like myself needs to hear from people like David and others about what reality is. And as I dug more and more into these people's testimony, I came to find out that it wasn't true. And David's perspective on it was absolutely right. So, any other questions?
We're going to take one more question, and then Ron, I think we'll have a few minutes afterward to stick around for some
sure.
questions.
Yeah.
Ron, I recently finished my income tax returns. And one of the last things that I did in completing that was to add in charitable contributions. And when I put them in, I noticed that my federal taxes went down. My state taxes didn't change a penny. Why is it, and how did that get that way?
I'm sorry, say that again. Your federal taxes went down.
When I added in my deductions for charitable contributions, my federal tax decreased, but my state tax, income tax, did not change at all.
Well, clearly the state isn't giving you the deductions on those charities for some reason. I don't know how, I really don't know the reason for that. I'd be glad to take a look at it.
Okay.
Give me the information, and maybe we can do something about it.
Okay, thanks.
I need to know the.
I didn't know
I'm
that.
sorry.
I didn't recognize that either until I just did that last week, and I noticed that. If anybody else knows the reason for that, I'd like to know.
That's where we need one of those experts I was talking about earlier. But I can check on that easily enough. If just give me the information, I'd be glad to do that.
All right, thank you very much, Representative Young.
Mr. Hamercheck is here this evening,
Yes.
running for County Commissioner, good Republican from out in Madison. All right? Welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Representative Young just stole my thunder. I was going to introduce him. Okay. And Representative Young has already pointed out that Lori Dinalo is here, and she's running for state representative from the 60th district in Lake County. And